It's the season of the oak tree. I see we got all these things, these tufts blow off the oak trees. And this is how you know the skimmer is working on the pond. You can see the rest of the pond is mostly clear of debris. And then the intake bay over here has all this stuff that falls off the oak trees. All right, I got some new additions to the pond. And that is a bunch of tadpoles, freshly hatched tadpoles. And there's some water shield in there, which is kind of like a lily in a sense. And here I have some newts. I'll open this up. I'm going to let them go right now. I'm trying to get them out. All right. There's one. See, it's got all the red dots on it there. We're gonna let this guy go up in here. Okay, so I got home and I finally got my plants, my bog plants, well, I guess you can call these semi-aquatic plants, to go around the margins of the pond. I ordered these, I think about a month and a half ago, and they finally came here. These are the blue irises and the dwarf sweet flag. It's quite expensive for this little bit of plants, but hopefully they'll look nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll plant them in the pond, and then I'll just show a little update on what it looks like when I'm done. All right, well, I got the dwarf sweet flag planted up in the wetlands filter area here, and I just got the 2 plants. That's all I got. Pretty pricey for that little tiny plant from where I got them from, but I don't know, it's not really something I can find anywhere else, I guess, not locally anyways. One thing I'm also finding out here is that these birds are relentless in tearing up my plants. And I don't mean like, the stuff planted up in there. I mean the stuff that's like over here. The creeping Jenny, I got the stuff planted in various places here. You can see here, this is constantly being messed with. This was planted in a little bit of soil, and this is constantly being pulled up and messed with. It's not getting any kind of chance whatsoever to get itself established. And if it just keeps getting messed with like this, it's just going to end up dying. The one over there, I came home today, that was completely pulled out of the gravel. All the roots were up with it. I know the robins are in here picking away at stuff constantly. So I just covered up with a bunch more gravel, hopefully to keep it in place. But every time it gets pulled out, it just sets it back because it like stunts its growth and has to reestablish its root system again to grow down into the gravel. It just keeps setting it back. I had also put a bunch of mosses all over the place here, in every little nook and cranny. So there was moss planted on the log, there was moss mats in a lot of places, especially over here. As you can see, it's completely gone. And then I actually tucked in mosses even around this filter clean out here, and they even pulled all that out. I had it tucked way down in there, like you can barely see it, and they even pulled all the moss out of there. I had so much moss in here, and it's almost completely gone and trashed. So I think I'm done trying to do anything with mosses right now. Maybe till, late. I'll do it late in the season when the birds aren't nesting. All right, so here's the blue irises. I just put them over there in the shallow margin over there, and then there's one over there. Got the little dwarf sweet flag. You can barely see them in the video. They're so small. I feel like I overpaid for those. Here's a little update on the pond. Well, not so much the pond per se, but in addition to it. So over here, there was grass around here, and I wasn't really sure at first what I was going to do with this area because I just didn't like having to get my riding mower in here and having to turn it around. It is a 0-turn mower, but still I don't like having to come in here and reverse and all that stuff. So I figured what I would do is just take the grass out, so you can see about how far I went down there just with a shovel and a spade. I did this all by hand. It only took me maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to do it. While the ground was moist, it was a little bit easier then. But anyways, so I laid down the landscaping fabric. I'm going to have some flagstone, not that stuff, that's manufactured, but actual rock with, a more natural look. And that's going to be all through here, and then it'll be filled in with gravel in the center. I'll probably show that when I'm done. That over there is the well. I didn't show the process for that. I did talk about this in one of the videos here, one of these pond videos, about if I was going to do this or not. I wasn't sure about it. I decided to go ahead and do it anyways. Basically, I dug that's 24 feet deep to the bottom of the casing. I basically dug it with a modified post hole digger, and I used an electric auger motor with that. I made extensions for it with my welder. These are actually extra landscaping boards I had from doing these boards many years ago, and I finally found a use for them, so now those are pounded in place. I actually just used EMT pipe to pound those in on both ends. I didn't have any rebar laying around, and I had those EMT pipes. It was free, and it seems to hold it better. They won't last forever, but really, once the stone is on both sides of it, those really aren't going to go anywhere anyway. So everything here is DIY and making use of what I have, trying not to spend too much money, and it's working out so far. Okay, I got the walkway stones all done here. These are just a blue sandstone, siltstone. Basically just filled it in with the gravel that was along the side of the house all the way around. Just took a little shovel full all the way up around the house, just so it wouldn't take all from one spot, and just kind of filled in everything here. I'm going to probably put a little bit of a topper stone on top of this, either a different color or a different size to kind of give a separation from that stone, just so it looks a little bit better. This is the first test run of the system that I put in to refill the pond using the well that I dug. For anyone who hadn't followed, that goes down 24 feet bottom of the casing, and then another 4 feet, so it's 28-foot deep well into the aquifer. And there is a foot valve down in there, and then this here on the top here is a valve so that I can fill this up, which already works, already tested it out. So basically just put a watering can or a hose on the top of this, and then the water will run down into here, and then it goes up over there into the pump. It fills water up there to prime it basically, and then it comes out the tube, and then it goes into the pond. And then also in the winter, when I need to winterize it, I open this valve up and I just stick a tube down there and suck out like about 2 feet of water so that it's below the freeze line, and then just blow the water out of this or suck it out, however. But it comes out of the well there, it goes underneath, and then it comes up over here into the pump, flows in, and then it comes out into this tube, and then that goes underneath here. There is a channel that goes in here, a separate channel from the electrical stuff. And then it goes underneath the, I guess you call it a threshold. Goes up into the rocks, and then it comes out right over there. There's a 90-degree irrigation fitting, and it's just going to shoot into my intake bay here. So this is the first test run here, and we'll see what happens. Probably is going to come out pretty strong. Oh, I guess it helps if I plug it in. Now we're plugged in. Yeah, that's a little bit strong there. It's not bad though, it's blowing right onto the rocks. It's a little bit loud. I'll turn it off. Alright. I'm gonna have to adjust it a little bit probably, or put a baffle on it. Didn't hurt anything over there, it just shot onto the rocks, so that's good. And it's not siphoning anything out of the pumps to ruin the prime, so that's also good. Looks like it's working pretty well. So the addition I'm going to make here is going to be a digital timer, basically, Wi-Fi controlled. So I can control this with my phone. I can turn it on at any time with that little plug that goes into the outlet. You can actually see it's pretty muggy out here, but you can see that the water that it sucked out of the well is very cold. You see it's sweating already? And that's pretty chilly. So I don't know the temperature of the water. I'd have to actually measure it, but I can tell it's pretty cold just by looking at that. Well, that's it. It works. I had some questions if my water from my pond spills over the patio when it rains. Well, as you can see, it's raining very hard right now. You can see the flow from my gutter. That is a lot of water right there. So, the question is, does it spill over the patio? Well, not really. You can see it right here. This side here has a slight overflow below the patio by a little bit. Mostly there on this side here, there is a spillover underneath those rocks where it is about 1 inch below the patio. So right now the water is flowing into the French drain with a spillover, but because you're talking about probably gallons per second here, or maybe every 10 seconds, there's probably a gallon of water being added just with the rain right now with the surface area of all that. it probably is not really keeping up too well with the spillover, but it's not really spilling over the patio. You can see here that there's a little bit of water coming over the edge of the pond liner. It is touching the patio a little bit, but this is also a French drain on this side, which ties in around the whole edge here. So there's no more water on the patio than there is rain falling on it right now. I have installed a well pump, specifically a pitcher pump. Made a box to go over the well, basically, and all the plumbing, and that is about 30 feet of 2x8s to make that, and a couple short pieces of 2x4. And then I use motor oil to basically seal it. And well, so basically all the stuff was free. The pitcher pump I had to buy a while ago. That was red. I painted it. On the back side over here, in order to access everything, so you can see here there's a disconnect here to pull the well pump or the dipstick, basically, to pull that out separately from this plumbing. And there's a valve there and another union. So if I want to take this top off, because this is not screwed on, this is basically just, it's got some guides here. These are 2x4s that holds the top together, and then when you put this top on, it's basically fits perfectly. There is no play forward or backwards. If you just pull this thing straight off the pump, and the top comes off completely if you need to take it off for any reason, and that's what that union is there for, so everything can be taken off on the top part. But there's a access door that I put in here. I just reused some old door hinges I had, so those were free too. And I'm gonna basically put a little handle on here, but when this closes, it stays closed. There's not really much of a reason to put any kind of latch on there. So that opens up. In order to get the pitcher pump to work, normally this has to be off for the well pump, the electric well pump, to refill the pond because of, well, suction and everything like that. So to use the pitcher pump, I have to open that valve, and then over here, underneath the crudely camouflaged pump and hoses and everything, I had to install a valve here on the outlet, which goes to the pond. I could have used a check valve, but there's a couple of reasons I'm not going to get into why I didn't. It just wouldn't work out very well, let's put it that way. So basically, you got to turn this valve off so that it doesn't pull anymore. So it doesn't pull anything out of this tube. So we can get suction. So that's off. Now this is going to be the first time I use a pitcher pump here. So let's see if it works. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. I need to pour some water in that to get it primed. All right, I got a little watering can to get this pump primed, but this whole box is bolted to the ground, by the way. This is not going anywhere. So let's pour some water in here. Put that all the way down first. Let's see if that's enough. There we go. Now that's the well water. Well, there you have it. Basically just for looks. And I don't know why you need to use that for anything else. There's a whole bunch of water there. But if you want to fill the bucket up, you can put it on there, and instead of using the house water, whatever. Mostly just for decoration. Something to cover up the well itself, but maybe have it look practical and be somewhat useful. Alright, this is going to be my last update segment for this whole video. Just wanted to go over a couple of things here. So the pump, which is underneath there, the electric pump that is connected to a smart switch, which I also can control with my phone, but I have it set to come on at 7 p.m. every day for 1 minute, and then that shoots water into the pond. It's roughly 4 or 5 gallons of water that it refills every single day, just to replace what evaporated. Sometimes it's a little bit more than necessary, but during the summer that's probably not quite enough. It's just on par with just enough, I'll call it. Added some reddish colored rock within this area here, gravel I mean, to kind of make a separation between this part of the house and the pond, just so there's some differentiation in this path here, so it doesn't look like it's part of this or part of that. It's just its own separate thing. Of course, I already showed that working the pump. I've actually tasted that water and tested the water. There's no bacteria in it whatsoever, and it's perfectly clean, has no odor whatsoever, and it tastes like very fresh water. So there's my only little update I'm going to make about the well itself. I wrapped a little bit of ivy around the output tube there, which feeds up towards the bog, just to kind of hide that a little bit. Originally, I was going to have like a log over there or something like that, but I figured I didn't want to put anything else in the way, and that's good enough to hide that. Actually, you don't really mind the bucket that you can see down in the intake bay. I don't mind that so much because you can't really see it unless you're kind of standing over top of it. From a distance, when you're looking at the whole pond, it's not really distracting anything. Also, I wanted to point out that the bugleweed here that I actually planted from around the yard, most people would call this a lawn weed, but the bugleweed is actually growing a lot better in the gravel here, where it's harder to access the dirt below it. It's growing better here, actually better than the lawn actually, than it is growing over in the mulch area. So this is some of the plants, the bugleweeds growing in the mulch area, and you can see how they've actually grown. Like, I think the original one's planted right there, and then it shot a little bit of I guess you call it a rhizome or a runner. It shot a runner over it here, which rooted, and then there's one there, and then one down there. And you can see how much smaller they are and less fluffy over here in the mulched area. Oh look, the red squirrel has come up to get a drink. I don't know if he's gonna run away. Nope, he wants water more than anything else. We'll just watch him a second. Okay, I moved my arm, so he ran. Anyways, yeah, so some of this stuff over here, like the bugleweed over here, in all these different places here, you can see that it's smaller than actually where it's growing in the gravel. So I just thought that was interesting to show. I also added a few more plants up here where my dwarf sweet flag is. I added this plant here, a couple of these. I don't know what this is. I got this from a local lake, and these were growing up in the on the shore area where it's like boggy. I also put some more over here, and then there's some over in the rock over there, and those are just basically just sitting in the water while these are planted in the gravel. And this over here, about 1.5 inches below the gravel is actually the water. So it's actually in the water, but it's just in the gravel. It's more dry on the top. All of this stuff here growing down between the rocks is called Creeping Charlie. This is basically a ground ivy that grows in the lawn, and this grows all over my yard. And this can be kind of invasive because it grows so fast, and also that it just kind of grows everywhere. But I kind of like it, and because it grows into the water here, and you can see that it's actually growing underwater and putting down a lot of roots and everything. This is going to help keep my pond water clean and suck up the excess nutrients that's in the pond water. So it's not going to me, it's not going to hurt anything. It's going to help everything. Plus, I like the look of it. See it's growing kind of down through the rocks and everything, and leaving the other parts of the rocks exposed. And to me, that looks more natural, and it kind of breaks up the hardscape. I really like it. I'll show you what it looks like from the other side as well. Don't believe this is called duckweed. This might be called frogbit. It's one of those kinds of plants. They just grow in these tiny little floaters, and then you just kind of sprout new ones off of there. And mostly they're just staying up here in the bog area. I also like to point out, for those who haven't really followed these videos, that there is just an anti-siphon break. So basically it's just taking some of a small fraction of the water that's going under the bog and coming up, and just putting it on top. So if the pump shuts off, since this is higher, this will allow air to get into the line, so it doesn't suck all the debris out of the bottom of the bog and flow back into the pond if I lose power. That's all that's really for. Plus, I guess it kind of also adds a little bit to it as well. You don't see it from that side. You just kind of hear it and see the splashing. It kind of helps the plants as well. And then over here, you can see my irises. They haven't really been doing all that great, and you can see more over there. The one plant that's there is doing very poorly. These two, this one here and then this one here, are actually growing slowly. What I actually decided to do is pour a little bit of clay in there, not topsoil because that would have too much nutrients in it, but just some clay And then I poured in some pea gravel and then some sand on top of that and kind of just worked everything in there because the gravel they were planted in was too large. There really wasn't a whole lot of stuff for them to really take hold in, so I had to add some smaller bits in there as well as the clay to give them a little bit of something to grow. And you have some plants over there. Just zoom in a little bit. Those were also taken from a local lake, and I don't know what those are called. It's not a lily or anything like that, or any type of lily. It's just it kind of grows up and then the leaves sort of float on the top. Those will grow in probably like 18 inches of water, and then as shallow as a couple inches. There's a couple down there that I pulled from the same place a long time ago. They're not really doing all that great for the same reason that the irises weren't. So I changed that. So the new ones I got, as you can see right there, I planted those in a wrap. I basically just put the roots in a wrap of clay and then put it in there and then some gravel on top of that, and we'll see how that goes. And of course my spearwort has flowered quite a bit, as you can see here. That little tiny plant, all those flowers up there, it's pretty interesting. There's also a different type of grass growing here. I don't really know what kind it is. I think it might be a tall fescue grass. I'm not too worried about that growing there. It actually kind of looks nice. It kind of adds to it a little bit right next to this dead stump that I put here. This here is not the kind that really spreads through runners, I don't believe. It sort of just grows in a tuft. I've seen this stuff grow around the lawn, so that's kind of how this type grows, and it's a darker green. So as long as it stays there, that's fine. But there's other type of grasses that grow in here, which I've recently pulled out, which are creeping grass. Like this stuff down here, you can barely see it there, but that's a creeping grass. It's either a Bermuda grass or some sort of a red creeping grass. I don't remember what it's called. It's really hard to identify, but there's only a few different types. That's the kind that I don't want growing over here because that will start spreading over top of everything, and that could be kind of a mess to clean up. Grasses growing around the pond are okay in some parts, as well, as long as it's kept in one little area, but grass like all this would be pretty bad because that means you'd have to go in there and trim it out and everything. It could be a pain. So here's some more of that creeping Charlie growing over here. There's some more bugleweed. I think it looks nice. Like all this stuff here just makes it look like more of a natural wild landscape. I think some people make the mistake of when they're putting something like this in here is to make everything look too symmetrical and patterned, and that's not really how nature grows. Nature is kind of more of a wild card, I guess. So when you just let nature do its thing, as long as it doesn't look too bad, it can actually just be better to let nature go rather than trying to fight against it, because it looks better this way. Also, so like over here, you can see down here where all that creeping Charlie is growing down from above, growing down in between the rocks, and it's leaving the rocks exposed. It's not hiding my rocks, but it's growing down there and kind of adding something to the landscape. And then it's also growing down in the water there. And then by doing that, it's putting roots in there, also helping absorbing excess nutrients to prevent algae. And then also what it is doing is providing places for little things to hide, whether it be bugs or baby fish, fish eggs, frogs, tadpoles, anything that might show up. There's some more stuff growing over there too. So that's only going to help the whole system here. It's not going to harm it. Now, if it gets to be too much, then yes, you'd have to kind of trim it out. But right now, I want this to grow there. So anyways, I don't think there's anything else to really update on. Don't know if I mentioned before, but that over there, there's a container with a top and a little brick on top. That's covering up some moss that I brought back from out of state, and I don't know what it's called. We do have the same type of moss growing here, but that was growing in a boggy area, and I'm protecting it so the birds don't take it away, because the robins will destroy that if it's unprotected. Eventually, there's just going to be a flat stone over there covering all that stuff up, and that'll go away. But as you can see here, the fish are doing pretty well. I mean, I only feed them once a week, and there is a little bit of hair algae growing in here. It's not really out of control at this point, but because I introduced it with some snails, I don't see any snails to show you right now, but there was a bunch of snails I put in here, and they had hair algae on them. and I probably should have never have put them in here. But either way, eventually would probably get hair algae no matter what. But it didn't seem like there was any hair algae in my pond until I put those in here. But again, it really probably wouldn't matter. So yeah, that's about it. Everything looks good so far, and I think this will be the end of the videos for this season until maybe winter starts to hit, and I'll kind of show what I'm doing to winterize the pond. Sorry this was a long video as a whole. There was just kind of a lot to cover, and I didn't really want to make a bunch of individual videos. So that's it. Thanks for watching.